We're here with Brock Huard, ESPN Radio in Seattle, ESPN nationally, analyst for college and the NFL, and obviously former Seahawk and Husky star as well. So Colin Kaepernick, the news of the week that he's in town working out for the Seahawks. We'll talk on the field, but how do you think he would fit in terms of the off the field in this locker room with these guys and in this city?
I think he fit pretty well. This is the one thing that Pete Carroll covets and loves is individual empowerment and freedom. We had Howie Long on the radio this week celebrating Cortez Kennedy, and Howie was great. And he said, the Seahawks team reminds me of my old Raiders locker room. It's a rainbow of characters and personalities. And Pete really covets that. Pete Carroll doesn't duck from that. And you've already heard from Bennett and Sherman, and these guys know him. I think, Steve, that's what makes me most comfortable, is you're not getting a guy that you don't know a lot about. An RG3, you played once. Right? Some of these other veterans that have been backups, you don't really know what they're all about. This guy, you've been in the most heated battles with him. You know what makes him tick. You know what makes him go. You're not asking him to be your starter.
Right.
You're asking him to be a backup, that if something were to happen for a few games that you feel good about, that you can compete with. And I think those players and those coaches know him awfully well.
And 3-4 years ago, he was considered one of the up-and-coming young quarterbacks, and now he's not. And one of the reasons is fundamentals, and it's something that a guy like you would know, and I think can really help instruct our viewers as to something like the off shoulder, the non-throwing shoulder, why that makes such a difference. And if you can compare that to this picture that we've got of him versus Russell Wilson and Tom Brady, and tell the viewers what they're seeing.
Yeah, I think there's two things that jump out fundamentally. You're talking about his shoulder. Now, he's a righty, so bear with me. I'm a lefty. But it's that shoulder away from your throwing arm, and he flies way open. And you'll hear hitters and pitchers and even golfers talk about that and talk about some of the structure in a golf swing or in a hitting, and when you're hitting, keeping that shoulder in and not just flying out. Same thing when you throw. And you watch a compact Tom Brady. I think he's the best. A Russell Wilson that's maniacal about his fundamentals and details, and that shoulder stays square all the way through. You'll watch Kaepernick, and it flies open. And once that flies open, everything else follows. The other thing he does is he winds that thing up. He'll throw fastballs, and he'll throw it really hard and a long ways, but there's that pronounced wind-up. So you combine both of those, kind of that open shoulder and that long wind-up, and you get an accuracy rate that's below the franchise level, and why I think he's coming in here to be a backup.
And finally, what are your callers saying in general? Are they pro-Kaepernick, anti-Kaepernick? What's been the reaction?
I would say it's close to 70% yes.
Really?
Yeah, on the Seahawks terms. So I did a little unofficial poll. We've taken a lot of calls. Yeah, and I would say 7 out of 10 say, yeah, this makes sense. At the right number. Now, this isn't, it can't pay him $3, $4, $5 million, which is what I think typically backup quarterbacks of his level get. But you get them on your number at your price, and you get that quarterback room to compete like all the rest of the rooms. There's a lot of in Pete we trust, and I think for good reason.
Yep.
Where this program is, where their championship pedigree is, where their national brand is, compared to when you and I watched them growing up, is very, very different. So there's an awful lot of trust in this organization.
OTAs start on Tuesday. Brock Huard, thanks so much for your time.
You got it, Steve.